Ano Ivelina Mike Aloha, and welcome to Kumu Facts Views. Today is a requested video. This takes us back to 2018. It was Uncle Johnny Lamho's last Merrie Monarch before he passed away. They do for you a melody called Kākaʻikahi Ka Manu ʻŌʻō. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check it out.
Ai e kai hele mai ana e ka manu o manu o ia no huane iu ka iu i kana hele o punala ha i mi ka manu i ke kumu o na I o ia nei no ka inu vai lehua I ka ula au o wala o hia Kani ko na manu le o hone he nani no ka hulu mele manu o iu ka iu I mi ka manu anana I o hano ka vai I ka ula akani ko na manu he nani no ka hulu manu o
Okay, so that was their ka'i. Of course, everything that Uncle Johnny Lamho does is something that he created himself. That was an intense ka'i, right? All that kakahele or that duck walk moving forward. And it's not a normal duck walk, it's depicting how a bird walks before they take flight. And of course, they get their head motion going in like this, right? It was an intense ka'i. We did see a little bit of a trip up at the beginning, but despite that, not at the beginning, as they're coming towards the end, you saw the girl lose a little bit of her balance because, again, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of leg work. But it really shows the imagery of a ʻŌʻō bird walking. Okay, now we're going to the main mele. Kākaʻikahi Ka Manu ʻŌʻō.
Lele iluna lele ilalo ora ila na ia ko mele ka indi ia lo ko ka pua manu o I ka ula lele iluna lele ilalo ora ila na ia ko mele ka indi ia lo ko ka pua Ho makapau I ka ulu ke pau aku I ke ulu la au ko ala I ke ahi ka iwi opi ka pili manu I ka lala ohia mupi I ka vai lehua ho makapau I ka ulu ke pau aku I ke ulu la au ko ala I ke ahi ka iwi opi Kapi manu I ka lala o iha, mupi I ka manu I ka waile hua. Halele ka manu I luna umi I ka wawaea, upai pai ana e ka hulu e kekei. Ko I ka manu a pa I ka lima, unu I ka hulu mele. Lele ka manu I luna umi I ka wawaea, upai pai ana e ka hulu e kekei. Ko I ka manu a pa I ka lima, unu I ka hulu mele.
Okay, so let's talk about it's an exciting mele that talks about the manu ʻŌʻō, or that black bird that has the yellow feathers under the arm that's plucked out for making the a'ahuia, the feather capes for the ali'i or royalty. Their lole represents that shiny black feather of the ʻŌʻō, and the yellow feathers, of course, represents the feathers that's plucked out. For those of you that don't know, the ʻŌʻō bird is pretty much extinct now, or close to extinction. I say extinct, because these birds are fragile, and when the bird catchers caught them, sometimes they didn't survive. There's a story that said, oh, once you pluck the yellow feathers, they die. There are some readings or reports that say otherwise. They really actually died because they weren't handled properly, because they are saying that you can pluck the feathers and let them go to allow the feathers to grow back. But what happens is that when the bird catchers caught them, they caught them too abruptly or too roughly, that the birds died. There are some birds that survived. There's mo'olelo out there that you can see that some of these bird catchers, all they did was, like, they were a bunch of athletes, strong, muscled people who spent times on the mountain cliffs catching these birds and releasing them. And it's said that their hands themselves turned into kind of like claws, because they didn't cut nails. They didn't, they used this to be able to catch the bird and pluck the feathers and let them go. But a lot of times that these men were too strong, that when they caught them, they actually killed the bird, because the birds are fragile themselves. So you see the olapa, the dancers on the stage, showing you that the birds are flying, right? The birds are living freely. There's a verse that talks about, looking for the yellow feathers, and you see them kind of touching the feathers. You see that a lot, I believe, in this mele. Then the last verse we saw before I paused it is the ho'omakau. You see them going around gathering supplies. This is when they get the sap. I believe I heard ulu, and when I look at the words, there's a ulu. They're getting makau ready for the sap of the ulu tree and all their supplies together. So when they pluck it, they can start making the a'ahu or the cape, or even gathering supplies to get ready to catch, help them catch the ʻŌʻō. That's going to be talking about in the next couple of verses. So just a little bit of a background of what they're doing, and so you can understand some of the motions.
Kākaʻikahi Ka Manu o Haina ia mai ana kapuana o inoa hano hano I Hawaii o ka manu o I Malamale Kākaʻikahi Ka Manu o ia mai ala He no ka manu o I hoka manu I kana hele o hia I haʻulula o wala o hia Aloha no ka manu o Kākaʻikahi Ka Manu o Aloha no ka manu o Kākaʻikahi Ka Manu
Okay. All right. So again, that's Halau Ka'ua Kani Lehua, Uncle Johnny Lam Ho, the late Uncle Johnny Lam Ho, Kumu Hula Johnny Lam Ho, his last Merrie Monarch appearance before he passed away. Kākaʻikahi Ka Manu ʻŌʻō. It was a fantastic uh, representation of the ʻŌʻō. Yeah, how they brought forth the imagery of the ʻŌʻō in their lole, in their accessories with the hulu mele mele, the yellow feathers here and the yellow feathers here. Um, Unfortunately, this kahiko didn't even place that year. It didn't make the ranking at all. And I remember seeing a lot of comments about how could they not place? How could the hometown halau not place with that absolutely stunning performance? Again, we don't know what's happening in the judges' minds, right? We are not in those seats. They have the authority to judge, and based on their ike and their manao and what they see in the factions and what they see on the stage. But I remember there was an uproar. A lot of people were complaining, but they really represented well. There's some motions in there where they talk about the how you capture the ʻŌʻō. In one of the verses, they talk about how you get makau and you capture them by their feet. Yeah, so there's a verse that goes, Lele ka manu iluna ua umi'i ka vavaia. The bird flies high above, but the feet are caught. Yeah, and then the feathers flap around. So you see a lot of these movements. You see them like getting their feet stumping, not really stumping, but tapping, 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 and then they take flight, but then they're caught. Because that's how the ʻŌʻō is caught, right? The bird catchers are creeping. They're being creeps, right? They're creepy. And as soon as the ʻŌʻō feels that presence, they start to take off, but they're already too late. They're in that trap. So I talked about the ulu sap, right? I said it's used to make the feather cape. I think I'm a little bit off on that part. What they're talking about is that they get prepared, and sometimes they create the sap, and the sap makes the area on the ground sticky. So when they try to take off, it's a little bit a slower takeoff than normal, that their feet are getting caught, or they're getting caught before they can even take off. So a little bit as I was listening to the birds, because he's actually chanting a little bit slower than normal, and you can hear the beats. But yeah, the mele talks about all of that, getting prepared for catching the ʻŌʻō. And when the ʻŌʻō bird is caught, they're kind of flapping around, and they didn't like to get caught, and then they're released if they don't die. I thought it was a creative, a really innovative mele, and Uncle Johnny is known for that. And his halau carries that flair, or carries that legacy of continuing to do things in the Uncle Johnny style. But the lole is a representation. Everything is representation of the ʻŌʻō. It's like every time I watch this, it's something. It's just amazing. I feel at awe when I watch this in any of Uncle Johnny's hula, because it gives motivation to continue to do what we want to do with our hula. He was a genius in this. The story he told, the presentation they put forth was a great imagery of the ʻŌʻō. I know I'm kind of rambling, kalamai, but every time I watch it, I just feel like, wow. I get excited and I just start to ramble on, but understanding the mo'olelo and watching it and seeing it again, I still get that. Like it's the first time I'm seeing it. But Kākaʻikahi Ka Manu ʻŌʻō, I believe there's some mo'olelo around this mele, because I've seen it done But some of the verses Uncle has in there is not done in some of the other styles. So it's credited to Uncle, but it also is part of another mo'olelo, if I'm not mistaken. That's where I get a little bit confused at. Because Uncle was a genius at hakumele. He could write stuff and he could write stuff on the fly. And every one of his presentations was original mele. Not everyone, but the ones that I can recall, I remember it being original mele. But this was a requested video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned a little bit more than what you maybe knew before you watched it again with me. But please take care, stay safe, stay healthy. Make a paulele. Aloha.